hello YouTube. We're gonna be watching a video called Cocomelon, the most evil channel on YouTube. I think I have a guess as to why Cocomelon is the most evil channel on YouTube. I am gonna let Sunny V2 explain it because I want to know what he thinks first before I say what I think. If you ever have time, come join us on twitch.tv/hex_juice, where we stream live approximately daily at approximately 10-ish, 11-ish PST AM. When I get live is what I get live, but we stream both days. Let's just go ahead and get into it. What does Cocomelon be up to? Are we brainwashing our children? Subscribe!
My son is almost 2 and I've been letting him watch Cocomelon, but now I had to get him speech therapy so I can get him to talk. There are hundreds and hundreds of anecdotes in which parents mention the exact same problem. The Cocomelon show is so insanely addictive, it's being compared to nicotine and causing developmental issues amongst the kids who can't stop watching. Children's TV expert Jerica Sands calls it the most damaging show a child can watch, explaining that
That said chid, not child. Sorry. Minor spelling mistake. Wa-cha-cha. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
The sneaky ways in which they make the show addictive. Firstly, there's the colors. Take for example the wheels on the bus. The 3 main colors, blue, green, and yellow, are all at maximum saturation, meaning they cannot be made any brighter, no matter how hard you try. Extreme saturation is normally used for alerts and notifications, as it's exciting, dynamic, and attracts attention, which is why it's also used in slot machines. Cocomelon puts these colors in perfect contrast, making them appear even more vibrant, which is different to, for example, Bluey, in which the colors instead blend together. Cocomelon's also different because it's highly repetitive.
So, I mean, part of it is like, my understanding of this is, and I don't know if you'll get into this, but I guess I want to do a knowledge check beforehand and see if he gets into it or if it's something different that he's talking about. But the thing about Cocomelon is that it's like extremely overstimulating, and all of the visual inputs, all of the sound inputs that are in Cocomelon basically get them, like the addictive part of it is just like that they are so stimulated all the time by Cocomelon that eventually just like normal being human is like not stimulating enough. And so like it basically trains their brain to a level of stimulation that is like ultimately harmful for them. So knowledge check, we'll see if that is what he's getting into.
There's a reason they have 38 videos with over 1 billion views. A child's brain is wired to learn through repetition, so it feels right to them to watch the same thing over and over again.
But that doesn't work if it's nonsense. I didn't even think about that. The repetition thing, it learns through repetition, so it's teaching through repetition, just like nonsense gobbledygook, essentially. Also, billions of views is insane.
Cocomelon abuses this in almost every video. For example, in the Yes Yes Playground song, they pick a word to repeat 3 times in every sentence, pairing it with a subtly repeating background lullaby, keeping children hooked. Literally no show or movie puts my son into a deep trance the way Cocomelon does. The second it's on the TV, he turns into a toddler zombie who doesn't see or hear anything else that's going on in the room.
That I really want to show kids things that put them into a trance. I don't want kids in this world. That's why I'm not having kids, dude. Because it's just like, you're giving kids like YouTube crack. Little kid YouTube drugs. Changing the way their brain is wired. Isn't that low-level brainwashing? I would say it's probably closer realistically to like hypnosis. But yeah, no, that's like, it's really bad. Because like you have to understand how much like when you're a kid, especially when you're young enough where you're watching Cocomelon, right? Your brain is like this like absolute like aggressive sponge for everything around you. Whatever you as a child, when a child is like paying attention to something, the things it's surrounded by, it is just intaken like very strongly and very quickly. And it's hard like to unlearn some of that stuff. Because it's like when you're a kid, like this period where you'd be showing a kid Cocomelon, is like the language acquisition period for kids. So like if you want to have a kid that's like bilingual or trilingual, you teach them around this age because it's really, really easy for them to learn language. Like their brains are literally fully primed for language learning. And so you can teach them 3, 4, 5 languages if you know them, and they will be able to be fluent in those languages extremely easily. Past this period of time, kids don't like you don't have the same language acquisition. If you're an adult trying to learn another language, it's super, super difficult because you don't have that same, like your brain is more developed. You're not in that developing stage. And so if you're having a kid who's just watching hours and hours of this like trance, yes, 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 nah, 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 you're basically filling all of that, like that sponge with just like nonsense. And it makes sense, actually. I didn't even know about this. It makes sense that they have this like verbal stunting if you watch too much of this. That's wild. That's insane. And I bet that causes like a bunch of behavioral issues too, because they don't have good communication skills if they are learning nonsense watching Cocomelon. And then on top of that, they have all of these like weird issues with like not being stimulated enough, just being in real life. And so they probably have like insane behavioral issues because they can't communicate well. And because, dude, that's wild. Oh my God. Like I'm just like remembering all of my developmental psych classes and like I'm like blown away by this. It's frightening.
This is only exacerbated by Cocomelon's subtitles, which have also been a heavy point of criticism. The letters are not educational, I can barely read them fast enough. It's simply another interesting element to capture your little one's attention. Cocomelon explains in every description, our goal is to help make learning a fun and enjoyable experience for kids, giving you the peace of mind that your children are receiving quality educational content. But people have argued that they're teaching exactly what children shouldn't do. For example, in the No No Bedtime song, the baby refuses to brush his teeth, have a bath, put on pajamas, or get in bed. The education is that he eventually agrees to do so, yet a TikTok user was critical, stating, anytime I'd ask my son to do a simple task, he'd say no, no, no. He's sitting there watching Cocomelon, which taught him no, 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 and to say no to me. On the top—
That's insane. No, but it makes perfect sense. The thing is because kids are like these sponges, there's no doubt in my mind to any of this even needing to be exaggerated. I'm sure it's worth. These babies are being spawn camped. That's insane.
Topic of education, Jerica Sands stated, these people don't give a shit about our children. They care about money. That's it. Your child's cognitive development in direct exchange for their wealth, and there's pretty good evidence supporting this. A New York Times journalist visited Cocomelon's studio, discovering their #1 focus is keeping children hooked. Cocomelon's data and analytics team sifts constantly through YouTube numbers to determine exactly what resonates.
Cocomelon is not like it's not actually on television or cable, right? It's only on YouTube. Because the thing is I've been thinking a lot about how like YouTube's metrics sort of encourage like slop, essentially, or like it encourages certain practices. And the reality is like two of the most important metrics for YouTube videos. I mean, there's one that is the most important, and then there's kind of the secondary one. Is like you have your click-through rate, which is how often when somebody sees your video that they click on it. And then on top of that, there is also the watch time. Watch time is like the most important metric in YouTube. It is what determines how often they show it in the algorithm. Like by far, it is by far more heavily weighted than everything else. Actually, as a fun fact, do you guys know that there's like a thumbnail testing system through YouTube? Where you can do like A, B, C and see which one is better. It'll give you a percentage. That doesn't actually measure the click-through rate of the thumbnail. What that measures is the watch time you receive from each thumbnail, which sort of like is like implicitly proving how much YouTube values watch time, because the longer the watch time is, the more ads you get. And so, like, really, Cocomelon is not actually incentivized at all to make legitimately educational channel. You know, it has a show on Netflix called Cocomelon Lane. Was it originally on YouTube, though? And then it got picked up by Netflix, or no? I'm genuinely asking. I don't know. But if they're doing it based off of YouTube metrics, it absolutely incentivizes them to just make it, like, get the kids to watch as much as possible. And so if you got to put them in a trance, put them in a trance. Because I think it was YouTube first, and then maybe it's gone on to Netflix later. But like, my point is if that they are using YouTube metrics to determine how to make their videos, ultimately, what it is doing is trying to get kids to watch as long as possible, which makes sense if they're doing this kind of trance-like da-da-da-da-da-da kind of hypnotic thing, because that would get kids to watch longer, and it gives them more ad revenue, and it gets them more money. It's insane.
Should a girl wear black jeans or blue jeans? Should the music be louder or softer? Should the bus be yellow or red? Yellow is the answer, as they use a darker method to ensure that they're correct. Cocomelon has a dedicated Distractotron room, in which once a month children are brought here one at a time and shown a handful of episodes to figure out exactly which parts of the shows are engaging and which are tuned out. Next to the
Whoa! So we're not testing whether it's actually educational, it's just how much attention it can bring, how much attention it forces from the child? That's crazy! They're just saying that in an article? Just like, that's wild.
TV playing Cocomelon, there's a second screen which plays a continuous loop of banal real-world scenes. A guy pouring a cup of coffee, someone getting a haircut, each lasting about 20 seconds. Whenever a youngster looks away from the Moonbug show to glimpse the Distractotron, a note is jotted down. We can see what they're looking at and the exact moment when they got distracted. Therefore, education clearly isn't the primary goal.
Well, that makes that claim that they seem like they're in a trance feel really real, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. Long and short of it is, that is the actual goal, is to put kids in a trance to keep them watching and keep the watch time up and get all of the ads as much as possible. That's actually like legitimately sort of sinister to me.
Keeping kids' attention is, and this is proven by Cocomelon's most addictive element, rapid camera cutting. It's crazy how many times the frame changes on Cocomelon. It's the same type of addicting behavior that we experience on a TikTok binge. It's the quick change of frame that releases that dopamine and makes the videos addicting to watch. Count the seconds between a change of frame. Well, TikToker the Circus Brain did exactly this. He firstly counts the changes on My Little Pony, concluding there's about 6.
What? Whoa. What My Little Pony is that? I ain't never seen that My Little Pony. That's different. Oh, I hate it. I'm good.
Seconds between each cut.
That's not
he
my
then
My Little
compares
Pony.
it to Cocomelon.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. 1.
In her video, The Nightmare That Is Cocomelon, Savantix draws a similar conclusion. She found that 96% of the shots in Baby Shark were shorter than 2 seconds. She then compares 4 different animated shows, again finding Cocomelon has the shorter shots.
The longest shot on a Cocomelon video was 6 seconds. The longest
6?
shot on Arcane was 8 seconds. The longest shot on Bluey was 27 seconds. And the longest shot on Encanto was 18 seconds.
Which, when combined with every other element, creates some terrifying statistics.
That's wild.
Dr. Kristen Summer explained that when showing an infant normal video content, they'll focus on the screen just 11% of the time. However, when the video is instead switched to Cocomelon, their screen engagement skyrockets to a whopping 74%. This
Arcane too, but you have to understand, like, it's in addition to all of the other parts of it, right? Because Arcane is like more so telling a story. It's for adults, but it's like without all of the other elements of it, it's very different. Arcane is, but yeah, like Arcane is not for kids. Arcane is for adults very much. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, there's no reason to screen cut that much except for to keep people engaged, to keep children engaged. Sinister would be, yeah, I like that word for it. Sinister, incredibly sinister.
therefore produces stories such as this. I used to volunteer for a preschool and they had song time. A Cocomelon video came on and all of the tots stopped what they were doing, put down their cheese crackers, and remained fixated on the screen for the duration of the video. It was honestly kind of terrifying. YouTuber Saberspark shared his own personal anecdote. He asked to watch a Disney movie with his two younger cousins, who both completely refused, and instead spent all day glued to an iPad playing the addictive show. In Cocomelon Made My Kid a Zombie, a mother talks about her son. He would be in a daze while watching it. You could be waving your hand right in front of his face and he wouldn't move. It was almost scary. This was also discovered by Sarah Mills 98, who explained when the Cocomelon addiction is so real that my 1-year-old can navigate the TV to turn it on by himself.
That little blood is like fiending. Look at that kid's face.
That my 1-year-old can navigate the TV.
I can't even imagine in like 15 years what kind of effect that will have. That so many kids were just hooked on the cocoa. They on that cocoa pack. Needs to be in moderation. I am not the parent to be clear. However, I don't think that you should give this to kids at all. Well, we could just give them a little bit of cigarettes, the kid. If you just give them like one cigarette, like as a little treat, it'll be fine. I don't think we should be giving these kids Cocomelon at all. Keep these kids off the Cocoa Pack. Keep these kids away from the Cocoa Pack. No moderation for the Cocoa Pack. No cocoa for kids. No, that's insane.
TV to turn it on by himself. However, nothing shows the addiction better than the Cocomelon TikTok trend. Parents will play the show's intro loudly and video their kids sprinting toward the television, where you can witness their mood change instantly. The New York Times journalist found something similar. The kid in the Distractotron had shown up in the midst of a tantrum, which ended the second he heard the Cocomelon theme song. It was no surprise to Wheeler, the head of research. 99% of kids, he said, if they're having issues when they get here, once that Cocomelon song comes on, they're like, life is okay, all is good with the world.
They're on that Cocoa Pack. They're cocoa fiends. Damn, I wish I had something that made me that happy that quickly.
Obviously, there's a reason for this. Cocomelon is so hyper-stimulating that it actually acts as a drug, and what happens when you take the drug away. Young children experiencing symptoms of addiction and withdrawal, obviously leaving them completely dysregulated. TikTok user ThePoff1 filmed what happens when you take the show away, explaining he'll be inconsolable for at least 10 to 15 mins after, adding in the description, Cocomelon meltdown is legit. Once you have a taste of the cocoa, it's hard to break the addiction.
Once you go cocoa, you don't go back. I'm trying to be funny about it because there's a certain like dystopian absurdity of it, you know? But like, God, that is fucking horrifying. Gotta be, they be loco for the cocoa, on God. It's so legitimately terrifying. Do they just have like an endless loop of Cocomelon that's just on? Wait, how do they have 4 live streams at the same time? Like, this has almost as many billion views as there are people on this planet. It has 6.8 billion views. I don't even know what to say, dude. That's,
which this Reddit user had experienced even worse. My husband and I have been worried about our child. I can slowly see how she'd throw violent tantrums at home and in church whenever she'd get bored and would want to watch the show. Her behavior changes the moment she watches the show, and she will not even eat her meals if she wouldn't watch it. After these tantrums end, kids can experience a general discomfort in the speed of everyday life. The more they watch the show, the more their brain begins to expect this intense level of stimulation.
Basically, Cocomelon overstimulates their brains so much that everything else just seems slow and boring in comparison.
However,
you guys remember when like the parents were in a moral panic about like violent video games for kids? And now we're just like feeding kids video crack. Little did they know how much worse it could be. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like there was like a moral panic over Harry Potter and like the demons. And now we're just feeding kids like YouTube video crack, and that's just what it is. Like, yeah, Pokemon was satanic. Former Disney execs, which makes this even worse. I would honestly rather my 4-year-old play GTA. I'd rather my 4-year-old go do hookers and shoot at the cops or something. I don't fucking know. I'd rather my kid go play GTA and experience like that than this. Granted, probably neither are good, and I'm sure somebody will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, GTA. That was obviously like an exaggeration for comedic effect. Let's be for real.
But the potential consequences get much worse than this. As mentioned at the start, it was the cause of a child's speaking problems, with a notable reply reading, "Same thing happened with my daughter too. She's 4 but can't speak properly. She knows the words, but she does not like to frame the sentence or speech. She has been watching these Cocomelons or such other stuffs for 2 or 3 years. Hope we're not too late." Over on Reddit, a speech-language pathologist explained, "Screen time in general is linked with speech delays for a variety of reasons, but Cocomelon is excessively bad. Firstly, unlike other TV shows or movies, it doesn't have a story. It's just very short clips with poorly written songs."
Because it's like, it's not making their brain actually do anything. It's not making their brain actually like process or learn everything. It's just like highly stimulating garbage for them to stare at.
The kids aren't able to follow the plot, learn vocabulary, and see the resolution of a conflict, supported by infant specialist Meg Fora.
And the problem with fast-paced TV programs is that we find that little one's language development is slower.
On the Agents of Speech YouTube channel, this is again confirmed.
The main problem with watching videos on the internet is that they don't know how to use the language that they learn.
But he adds that 4 to 5 hours of screen time per day can make a toddler completely non-verbal. 4 to 5 hours is obviously a lot of time. But in Cocomelon Made My Kid a Zombie, researchers discovered that 5-year-olds who watch more than 2 hours of TV a day tended to have lower attention spans and were 7.7 times more likely to show symptoms of ADHD.
That's because ADHD is ultimately a disorder of like stimulation and dopamine, right? And so like, it's basically like, we're gonna hypnotize your kid into having ADHD and giving them like stimulation and dopamine problems. Like,
These screen times might be even lower for Cocomelon specifically, because as explained by Jerica Sands, not all screen time is created equal. A child who just watched 30 minutes of Cocomelon and a child who just watched 30 minutes of Trash Truck will look like a very, very different child. Thankfully, here lies a simple solution. Sierra Renee explained, my 2-year-old is speech delayed and addicted to Cocomelon. Switched to Miss Rachel 2 days ago, and he's already saying more words and hasn't had any tantrums. Kim.it shared an almost identical anecdote. My 8-month-old was obsessed with Cocomelon and having bad tantrums, so I cancelled Cocomelon and only let her watch Miss Rachel, and she said her first word within the first 3 days of watching. Clearly, parents are able to simply change the channel, but not before leaving Cocomelon a massive amount of dislikes. They've therefore earned the title, the absurdly popular kids show parents hate, and Cocomelon has actually responded to the criticism that explain our shows are not intended to replace outdoor playtime or playdates. They have a place in children's entertainment time, and as with food, exercise, etc., it comes down to each parent to find the right and appropriate balance for their children.
We are advertising crack for children. It's specifically made for kids to become addicted, like with crack. But it's like your fault if you didn't know that it was crack. Like, we basically made a Lunchable and we filled it with like crack to get your kids addicted to the Lunchable. But like, it's your problem if you gave them a Lunchable in the first place, not knowing that it was specifically full of crack. It's not our responsibility if you give them the crack Lunchable that we made it specifically to be an addictive thing. Like, that's like, I'm having a hard time finding a good, like, way to say this. If you make it as addictive and hypnotic as possible and as damaging to kids' development as possible, you can't then go, like, call it educational, make it specifically for kids. No one else is watching fucking Cocomelon. Maybe some really high motherfuckers, honestly. But other than that, we market it to kids. We obviously make it for kids. It's about kids. It's for kids. It's highly addictive for kids, but it's like, it's your fault that like you let them watch it. If they have problems because they take the baby crack, that's not our problem. Like, come on.
Our responsibility is ensuring that the quality of the content that we produce is high and beneficial for the development of a child's cognitive and soft skills.
Which they've failed at, no?
It is worth adding that our social media communities are filled with stories of parents who experience firsthand how Moonbug content helps their children. Cocomelon does have a crazy amount of supporters, but it's obvious that some of them are simply ignoring the downsides. My baby learned the alphabet and numbers from Cocomelon. She may not speak a complete sentence, but she expresses her wants through phrases.
I don't know what to say. I want that to be like sarcastic so bad, but I feel like it wasn't. I feel like it wasn't sarcastic. It's like, oh yeah, well, they're severely speech delayed, but they learned their numbers. Like, what?
But is it Cocomelon's responsibility to ensure that babies are talking? Well, no. People love blaming cartoons and games for raising children, and not the shitty parents that don't step in to stop them from watching so much. Cocomelon is actually a really sad symbol of parents giving their children tablets instead of actually parenting and interacting with them.
This is not a completely unfair criticism, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, this is not a completely unfair criticism. Obviously, there is, like, a bit of an epidemic of people just handing their kid an iPad so they don't have to deal with them. And, like, we could get into, like, a huge debate about that. The difference is that most of the content that you previously in the past would show a kid, you know, you got your Peppa Pig, you got your Bluey, you know, all that. most of those shows are at least designed around the concept of being somewhat educational and are designed around the concept of providing something valuable to the kids and is like meant to be somewhat in some way valuable entertainment for children, where this is literally like Clockwork Orange. We made Clockwork Orange shit for your kids. So like, yes, obviously, no matter what, you shouldn't be raising your kid via a screen, right? There needs to be limits on screen time, all of that. However, there's a really big difference between like Bluey and something like Cocomelon. So there's like, both can be true. One of these can be unnecessarily harmful and be prioritizing watch time and money over actually helping kids and are in fact detrimental and hurting kids. And one of them is like a debate about like parenting and like society.
Ultimately, parents are the people who choose how much their child consumes.
I can't believe it's...
But the problem is like, can you blame the parents if they don't know the harm of it? Because it seems like realistically these kids don't have to actually watch that much Cocomelon. Like, let's be honest. It doesn't seem like they have to actually watch that much to have these problems. And then it's like, once you've started this and your kid is addicted to the Coco, how do you stop it? If parents know and continue to let their kid watch Cocomelon, that's a problem. But like, you can't entirely and fully blame a parent for not knowing that like something is so incredibly harmful when it's made for kids. The assumption should be that if it's made for kids like this, that it's not meant to, like, it's not going to harm them, you know? Like, it's not so objectively and horrendously harmful for them. So it's like, it's kind of like an in-between. It's kind of hard because it's like, obviously they should be paying more attention to their kids. Obviously they should be limiting screen time. There's parts of this, but it's like, there's no expectation or like assumption that something like this is basically just like baby crack. And so like, I still think Cocomelon should be held responsible for the like, for prioritizing watch time and all of that over like actually like being educational and quality content for children. And also, yes, kids should be more, like parents should be more attentive. Like, it's both. I don't think that Cocomelon should exist is my point. The parents do have personal responsibility for the raising of their children and what they allow them to watch, and Cocomelon should not exist. Something that is as objective, like it's so obviously harmful as Cocomelon shouldn't exist, and kids should be better, like should be limited on their screen time. Two things can be true at the same time. It's an and statement, not a but. Just keep kids on the internet, period? Yeah. I don't think kids should be on the internet until they're like 10. Let them watch cable television for their like hour a day after they finish their homework, like God intended. Don't give them access to the internet in any free way until they are much older. 10 minimum is what I'm saying. I'm saying that like personally, I mean, because it's like personally I can say what I would do with my kids if I had them, but I don't. But like, I think kids should just be off the internet, especially in the period of time where they're like in the language acquisition period of development. Let's be so for real. We need to manage that. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. This shit is wild. I honestly was like shocked by how severe it was. The whole testing on kids thing is absolutely insane. I don't even know what to say to that. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Come join us on Twitch if you ever have time. Twitch.tv/hex_juice. I will see y'all later. Love yourselves. Go outside. Baba booey these nuts. Bye bye.